Evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Melissa Mickens, and I am the Artistic Production Associate at Manhattan Theater Club. On behalf of everyone from MTC, I would like to welcome you to an evening with Skeleton Crew, partnership with Harlem Stage. I would like to take this moment to acknowledge that both Harlem Stage and Manhattan Theater Club, our theaters and offices, occupy the unceded land of the Muncie Lenape people. We pay respect to them and to the many indigenous nations of this region. If you would like to know which land you occupy, we will place a link in the chat so that you can find that information for yourself. Tonight's event is one of, we hope to be many, in our Beyond the Stage Uptown series. The Beyond the Stage series creates a platform for continuing conversation long after the curtain has dropped on our Broadway and off-Broadway stages. With a focus on community partnerships and audience engagement, Beyond the Stage employs events such as this one to highlight how powerful storytelling affects an audience immediately after viewing and the lingering big ideas that deepen our understanding of humanity. Thank you to Patricia Cruz and the amazing Harlem Stage team for agreeing to partner with MTC for this event. It was a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to developing this relationship and curating more events like this one. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce your moderator for this evening. Multidisciplinary artist Carl Hancock Rux is an award-winning poet, playwright, novelist, essayist, and recording artist. Last October, he joined Harlem Stage as their new Associate Artistic Director and Curator in Residence. And his relationship with our panelists, as well as his overall knowledge across numerous disciplines, will make this evening a real treat. Ladies and gentlemen, Carl Hancock Rux.
You're muted, Carl.
I'm now unmuted, and hi, hello. I'm very happy to join Manhattan Theater Club. I'm very happy, I should say, I'm very happy to be the Associate Artistic Director of Harlem Stage and to be in this new relationship that we have with Manhattan Theater Club. Harlem Stage has had a near 40-year history of bridging Harlem's rich cultural legacy to today's emerging and established artists of color. We exist internationally at the intersection of art and social justice. And we are committed to a three-pronged mission of commissioning, presenting, and education, and operating out of Harlem's historic gatehouse. We value our partnerships with fellow arts organizations here in the city, especially our new partnership with Manhattan Theater Club. I'd like to introduce Playwright Dominique Morrisseau, Tony-nominated playwright, MacArthur Fellow, Detroit executive artistic producer, and author of Skeleton Crew, which is now running on Broadway, and which I had the pleasure of seeing, I think on opening night. How are you doing, Ms. Marceau?
Well, thank you. How are you, Carl?
I'm good. Excuse me for those early flubs, but I'm just, you know, it is what it is. I'm happy to be here.
This is what it is. Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here with you and stand here with you and your legend. I know of your work from many moons ago, so I'm honored to be able to be here and talk with you.
Thank you. I'm also happy to welcome Ruben Santiago-Hudson, who is a Tony Award-winning director for August Wilson's Jitney, last seen on Broadway, in his one-man show, Lackawanna Blues. His credits are vast. He is a polymath of theater, film, television, and he's also the director of Skeleton Crew. Welcome, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here and to see you, my friend, my brother.
And I'm also happy to welcome Jimmy Keys, AKA Jay Keys, who's a hip hop artist and composer who's worked on various projects in theater, including Skeleton Crew, and is one of the composers for the music. You are actually the composer of the music for the play. Is that correct?
That's correct. How you doing, Carl?
I'm good.
Great.
Welcome to all of you. I'm going to start with you, Ms. Morrisseau. Your play takes place primarily during the 2008 national economic crisis, particularly as it affected the imminent bankruptcy of Detroit auto industry. At present, the US economy, hard hit by the global pandemic, is faring well, but the momentum of job growth is not predicted to carry into 2022. And with many predicting the economy may not show any gain at all, and possibly show a loss in gross national product. Pandemic exhaustion regarding border blocking is also causing concern about the economy. So as a MacArthur genius and as a Tony Award nominated playwright, have you at all thought about how the present impending fiscal crisis informs the relevancy of your play?
Yeah, I mean, every day, especially in this time, when Reuben, Jimmy, and I have been trying to get a show up in a pandemic at a time when other shows are closing all around us, including my other show that was on Broadway. And so, we show up to work every day like, are we next? And also we did have to stop. We had to pause 2 times because of COVID and because of its impact on our show. And so, I often feel extremely vulnerable as a theater maker. So in doing a show about vulnerable workers, I mean, we're living our words like daily, and it's not just me that feels the way. I mean, the whole cast. I don't think there's ever been a more quoted play of mine than this one, just because of how synergistic it is with what we're experiencing in the world right now. But when we first agreed to work together and to bring the show to Broadway, when Reuben and I first talked about it, I just knew after coming out of 2020 that it was already speaking to in a new way. It was talking to essential workers and was representing what we have been calling essential workers recently, but who have been essential workers all along. And so, those things, those issues that the play talks about have always felt present, and they just continue to get even more and more present as we move closer and closer to doing the show and to continue to keep the show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Mrs. Santiago-Hudson, you're a heralded polymath, like I said earlier, a theater, an actor, a playwright, a director. Your own play, Lackawanna Blues, performed by you as a one-man show, is set in a boarding house in Buffalo, New York in the 1950s, a period of an overcompensated and underworked union workforce, environmental concerns, natural resource depletion, oppressive taxes greatly affected the post-war economic decline of the city of Buffalo, and saw Black men and women struggle through an unemployment rate twice that of white Americans. So in your opinion, how does the theater hold space for the reality of marginalized people in times of economic struggle?
But I think theaters have always reflected the times and the people who do the theater, the specific people, particularly us, the people of color. We have to speak directly to whatever situations that are haunting us, around us, affecting us. We don't have opportunities to just entertain. We have to enlighten. And so our theater is relevant theater that is pertinent to issues that are extremely pressing in our communities and in our hearts and souls and in our minds. So we don't have time to squander when you give us a stage or when you give us a microphone. And so my pet peeve is when I see a microphone or a journalist creating an opportunity for my people to speak and they say nothing. Then I'm like walking around, running around, slapping myself in the head and saying, say something. You got a chance to say something that might be impactful to our community, even if it's erasing some of the distorted images and ideas and stereotypes that have been created about us. Say something about that, or it's okay to be disdainful and angry. It's okay to be luscious and beautiful, but say something about that. So our theater is a direct correlation to our lives. That's the way I see it.
One of the things that really impressed me the most about attending the opening night of Skeleton Crew was how animated the audience was, and also how well attended it was. It was incredibly well attended, and in fact, so many people have been, reticent to really show up to certain events, and so I was really, really happy about that. And people just seemed like they were dying for this play. They needed this, they wanted this, and they were going to support this no matter what. Do you anticipate a return to dramatic plays? And I'm going to say that again, to dramatic plays, such as those written by August Wilson and by Ms. Morrisseau, that shine a light on Black history in America? And if so, what, if anything, could this trend mean to the success of commercial theater?
I think if anything, the most I think prolific thing that can happen is we as a people discover our power. We continue to put our power in the hands of other people, asking for permission to do our work. And maybe I pray and hope that we have seen and witnessed the power, because we have held Broadway open since it did open up. It was us that opened it up. And 60% of the people that showed up that you were saying that were so animated were us. So if we can take that as a reminder and as a notice, if we have the power to do what we want, we don't need anybody's permission. So of course we can. If we have to depend on Broadway to allow us to continue to have multiple plays running at the same time, we are at a loss, and we're absolutely remiss on what the realities are. So the realities clearly are: we have power, we have impact, we have artists, we have the wherewithal. And the question is, what are we going to do? Not what Broadway is going to do. And that's what I'm waiting to find out, and I want to be a part of that.
Thank you for that. Mr. Keys, I wanted to ask you a question about the role of music in Skeleton Crew and its importance to creating something of a relevant, what I would consider to be a hybridity of dramatic Black theater and dramatic theater. There's a way in which it operates that perhaps people might not be used to happening in plays, and it was refreshing, and it was also definitely welcomed again by the audience, and had a wonderful reception by the audience. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how music operates in this drama?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, in all of Dominique's work, music, I always say, is the invisible character, and especially in the Detroit cycle, Detroit '67, it's Motown music, and Paradise Blue, it's the jazz of the '40s, and Black Bottom. And the Skeleton Crew, it's the hip hop of the early 2000s. And so, with this production, Dominique writes in the script that her influence is Jay Dilla. She writes in the stage direction that the music is inspired by the synchronicity of the Auto Factory. And so with those guidelines, I got the call from Reuben to score this beautiful piece. And that became my framework for how everything was set up. And so what I did was I thought of it on two tiers. One is, how can I push this story forward? How can I complement what you're hearing on stage and sing visually? And so my challenge was to put a score together that highlights what's happening and pushes it forward and drives the story. And so I call it, musical dramaturgy. And so that was my task, and I think we did a good job at it.
Absolutely. I was looking at in preparation for this, I was looking at an old video of Amiri Baraka in conversation, and he was talking about art and activism. He was talking about what Black people want. Well, his quote actually was that what Black people want is democracy and self-determination without being monolithic. And in the 1960s and 70s, he spearheaded a Black arts movement that produced his own works, as well as the works of Ed Bullins, and James Baldwin also was part of that Black arts movement, which greatly influenced the 20th century cycle of August Wilson's plays and other plays that came after that. Skeleton Crew is the third play in Ms. Morrisseau's Detroit cycle of plays, a conceit perhaps owing its thesis to the works of Wilson, or maybe not, you can correct me if I'm wrong, a playwright who adroitly looked at a century of Black lives in America as a critical backdrop for the American cultural, economic, and political production. Back to you, Ms. Morrison. Back to you, Ms. Marceau. What is the intersection of art and activism for you as a playwright?
Well, first I'll just say I absolutely and unequivocally stand on August Wilson's shoulders, and unapologetically stand on his shoulders, and the inspiration and the influence that he had over me and over wanting to write a cycle about my hometown to immortalize the music and the musicology of our language. And so, yeah, I stand on his shoulders, absolutely. And for me, art and activism they're linked, and they're not separate from me ever, really. My art is a form of action for me, but it's not the only form. You know, I can't just put something up on a stage and have some sort of if not necessarily a call to action, because I don't look at myself as a political writer as if I'm pushing a political agenda in my work. I'm actually pushing the agenda of humanity. That's the only agenda I have. It's like to excavate the human soul. It is not to convert. But I don't even know what I'd be converting you to. I don't have a devout belief system that I think everyone else should have. I just have a belief system that guides me. But I am interested in what is our human thread and what connects us and where we are, where everyone's humanity deserves to be spotlighted and to be made known, really. So for me, inside of the work, that is my mission. Outside of the work, I can't have a story, for instance, about auto workers fighting for each other and standing up for each other's rights. And the whole play is talking about standing up and fighting and fighting for each other's humanity to be not discarded by company interests and larger interests, that forget that working people are human beings first. And I can't have that kind of play on stage and not be committed to that kind of truth off stage. I am not that disconnected from what I write. I'm very connected to what I write. So it is important to me inside of the industry that I make art inside of, that it is just as equitable and humane and compassionate and conscientious as the work that I write demands of the characters inside of the plays, And so for me, art and activism, art is a form of activism, but then there's activism around the art itself, and activism in the world. I grew up very active. I've been active since since I was in college and even beforehand, since I was really in elementary school. I've had a cause or two, that I shared with friends, peers, and the cause could have been small, like everybody needs to go see the 5 Heartbeats, or really big, like we all need to go to this mall and protest, the killing and the murder of this Black man that shopped at this suburban mall. It was whatever it was. Activism for me was always about standing up for what's fair and was right. And I've always just had an internal sense of like, that is not okay. We have to say something. And so that just it's carried over for me into the work that I do. And then I see it happening in the world around us. And I see a young generation finding their sense of activism. And it looks different than mine because it comes with a social media that I didn't have growing up, And so I'm just watching and learning and finding my way through this new language of activism that exists right now.
Terrific. This question is for all of you. Thank you for that so much.
Yeah.
There was probably perhaps some of you are aware, maybe you're not aware, that there was a Black Seed, which was a national initiative aimed at strengthening Black-led theater groups, which announced grants to hundreds of Black theaters, a panel that I was very happy to serve on. And it was developed by the Billie Holiday Theater in collaboration with the Kraft Institute and Plowshares Theater Company and Waco Theater Center. And the initiative aimed to build a 21st century ecosystem for institutional thrivability, collectivity, tackling racial injustices and inequalities, and creating profound world-class relevant art and replicable institutional and national partnership models. With that said, what are your, and this question is for all of you, what are your hopes for Black theater in this 21st century? What are your hopes for the future of Black theater, Black music, Black cultural production as it turns a lens on the lives of Black people in America? Anyone?
Well, my hope, Carl, is for, independence. That's something that I talk to Dominique about all the time, from my vantage point. And, I enter this world having come from the music industry first. So when I came over to the theater world and, via Dominique and her work, one of the things I would always say to her is, wow, this whole system feels archaic. It feels behind what the rest of pop culture is doing, with the rest of music and entertainment, film and TV. And so in music, I'll give you the example. We've essentially created our own economy. We've done away with reviews. There was a time when, there were 5 mics in the Source and the Source magazine, and that helped to usher artists forward. And then we kind of hit this point where technology caught up and leveled the playing field. And, we did away with that system. And now you're judged by a jury of your peers. And so one of the things that I would love to see for theater specifically is its own viability, its own economy, because we can put up these wonderful productions. We can recruit all the best talent, the best direction, the best scenic design. But, I would love to see a world where we have a database of people who aren't just, inside the theater world. I would love to see people from all walks of life. You have people that work at the bank, people that work at the auto shop. I would love for us to have that sort of reach. The same way that theaters have subscriptions and they have people that, that when a play goes up, they reach out to their database. I think one thing that's going to be pivotal is when we get to that point where we have, and I'm talking about artists, theater makers, Black theater makers, playwrights, directors, artistic directors, so on and so forth. When we get to that point where we have, we're able to reach our people directly and not go through a medium like Facebook or Instagram, which is, corporately owned. When we have our own reach, I think that will move light years. We've seen that model before. Tyler's done that model. Tyler Perry has done that model before, where he went direct to customer. We've seen it in music. We've seen it even in film and TV, but I have yet to really see it become a standard practice in theater. So that's what I like to see.
Thank you.
We also have to find a way, the connectivity of our theaters is it's not really strong, and we have theaters. How do we find a way to collaborate with each other, and what are the benefits from one theater that are useful and could be passed to another theater? Where is the mentorship and the leadership? How do we all come together, or they all come together in community to try to enable a solid future for us all? And I think it starts with acknowledging where you are in the work you do, and when I say that, I mean, are you a community theater? Are you an off-Broadway theater? Obviously, you're not a Broadway theater because there's no Black Broadway theaters. Are you on that level of artistic integrity? And yes, there are places that are. But we have to acknowledge the levels of the work we're doing and find a way to uplift the work that is community theater and raise the standard of that. And so we can continue to grow and fortify the excellence of what we do and not accept any mediocrity on any level, because everybody don't have the same resources. So that don't mean that your work has to be mediocre. Your work should be always fine. We always have to be fine. So we have to acknowledge where we are and what our needs are, and acknowledge, is there somebody in our ecosystem that can help elevate what we're doing, so we can all elevate our work. If you follow me, I can't make judgments on people, but people have to, in that sense, but people have to, acknowledge where they are, and then acknowledge, what do you do to bring your brother up, or how do I get to my brother to help pull me up, and that Black seed, I had a nice contribution there in helping put that together as well with the Dr. Indira Twaru, who we consulted together a lot. I pulled myself back from being on the committees because I'm at Manhattan Theater Club. I have an art center in Lackawanna, New York, and different things like that. So it wouldn't be right for me to start trying to get money for things if I have things that need money. So anyway, I just want us to see how we collectively fortify and solidify our connections as theater and theater makers, and how do those that have provide something for those who have not, and that all of us collectively decide that mediocrity is not in the game.
Right. There's a point that you just made that really strikes me, which is when you said that there are no Black Broadway theaters, and it may be a misnomer, or people may actually assume that there are. Let's say, for instance, because I remember being in a panel discussion with you when we were at the Schomburg, and Jitney, August Wilson's Jitney, was playing at the August Wilson Theater, and so.
Not the August Wilson Theater.
Wasn't that
Nothing
the August
Black is. Well, Passover finally hit that after 16 years. A Black play did go on there.
Slave Play is in there, Ruben.
No, Passover was there first.
Oh, Passover was there, and then Slave Play. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. So do you think that people are assuming that because this theater is named after August Wilson that it is in fact a Black Broadway theater, and that means something to the landscape of Broadway?
A certain particular group of people created Broadway, and they created it for them. And so we want a piece of it. We want in, because we are the them that is America. We are the them that are our stories that have built this country. So we want in, and we want some of the international cachet that comes with the name Broadway. But that does not limit the integrity of what we can do in other places and where our power is in other places. So there's no Black NFL owners. That was created by a specific group of people, very powerful, very wealthy, very connected. And they have not allowed a Black owner in there. Things are changing. We have to make the change. Change doesn't happen. I don't care if the theater is named after Snoopy. If you put something in there that refers to me and my people and the power and impact that we've had in this country, who we are and the contributions, I'm going there. I'd love to see Paul Robeson's name up there, but put Paul Robeson's ideology inside the theater. August Wilson stood for something. His name is on the theater. Does the theater stand for what he stood for? If you ask me, you're going to put my name on the theater right now, I don't care what the money is. Don't put my name up there if you don't put me in it. And I don't mean Ruben Santiago directing, Ruben Santiago's soul. I want my heart in something if it's named after me. There's an art center, Ruben Santiago-Hudson Fine Arts Learning Center. When I walk in there, that spirit of me is there. The work that everybody that gets hired and teach and does everything, I talk to and sit down and find out what they're about, because my name's up there, And so don't just I don't want cosmetic change. I want people to change their attitudes. That's what I want to change. Don't get me riled up now.
Yeah, no, thank you. We have some questions actually from the audience, and they're coming to me via chat, and I just want to read some of them to you. This question is for Mr. Hudson. The gentleman says, my name is Leighton Nguyen. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
I took that. I took his number. I'll get in contact with Leighton. Let's don't. I got Leighton. Ask us some more questions, please. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I think that was a personal question.
Oh, that was a personal question. Okay. All right. I thought it was a new question for you. Great. Let's see. Okay, yes, we do have a question from another audience member, which says, how do you reconcile the dynamic of the need for art to be financially successful, to survive while remaining true to the art? Do you find yourself having to compromise or make a compromise?
There's certain things that are not for sale. Integrity is not for sale. So that's the line you have to draw. Art without finance is nil. You cannot do art and make it reach the masses without some kind of financial. It don't have to be all or nothing at all. I mean, I started my theater company in Detroit, standing there, doing monologues, selling tickets out of my pocket. I had no finance, but I had to build some finance so I can grow the theater. But that doesn't mean you compromise your integrity. You cannot walk on our ancestors. We cannot. So yes, there is a marriage there. It's got to be a certain amount of business so we can do the art we want to do. But that business cannot, a part of that deal that's made is not stepping on your ancestors. That means keep your integrity intact. That's just my, Dominique, I know you have.
Well, no, I mean, Reuben and I talk about this a lot, actually, because I don't, and so does Jimmy and I. I mean, I think I'm not somebody who, I think in order to figure out what kind of compromises you're making, you have to ask what those compromises are in service to. For me, I'm just not somebody who's I'm not willing to compromise the art. I'm not. If I can't make sense of it and it goes against my integrity, like Reuben said, integrity is not for sale. You have to be willing to say no, and I've said no more than I've said yes, to be honest with you. And I've turned down some things that, carrots, if you, it depends on what you're driven by, but I think I have to, I always have to check back in about what is the balance between wanting my voice out there. I'm actually not seduced simply by having my voice out there. I'm more seduced by having a voice to add a counter idea to the noise, more than I am that it has to be my voice, right? I'm just like, ooh, I haven't heard that articulated. Listen, if I've heard it articulated, I don't have to be the one to articulate it. I can fall back. I'm always itching, and I'm a little constantly agitated, maybe, and constantly at a place of unrest because I hear things and I don't hear the vantage point that I have in the mix. So I want to get the vantage point in there. And so I always have to ask if what I'm doing is to serve this vantage point. If at any point in time that vantage point will be compromised, then I cannot do it. Mm-hmm. Now, if my own, I don't know, need for visibility or something gets compromised, that is different. Economics get compromised all the time. but it is, I have to have a certain valuation of myself that I don't fall below. But I also am aware of how the market views me, and I have to see that with my art and go, I know what kind of emphasis you place on award or this. I cannot myself inhale that and digest it and let that lead me, but I can be aware of it so that I can maneuver this business, with that consciousness and find a way to give my narrative impact, find a way to tell my story, not just through my art, but around my art, so that I can make sure that it speaks to what I think the consciousness is, but the compromise, it comes from, I think every art you make a compromise around. If you're a collaborator, you're going to make a compromise artistically, right? Because it takes more than you to get some work up. But the compromises that speak to compromising your soul, that's not a compromise I can make. And that's not a compromise Ruben makes or Jimmy makes, or, I don't think any of us on this panel makes. But I think it is, that is always the question, is what is being compromised?
Absolutely. I mean, and I was thinking about you too, Mr. Keys. Yeah, I'm glad that you seem ready and primed to answer that question, because I was going to ask you, particularly because you define yourself as a hip hop artist, as a musician, as a composer. So in that industry, in the music industry that we, think of as, maybe some people think of as award driven or commercially driven, what are, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like those compromises are absolutely off the table as far as your own production is concerned, and as far as what you're willing to do and not do in the industry?
The short answer is yes, but it's complicated. So what I'll say is, I personally, for the navigation of my career and my journey as an artist, I personally feel that you should never compromise when you have a clear vision. You should stay steadfast to that. I actually think, on the contrary, the reason most people do compromise is it's a scarcity mentality. They feel that there's not enough opportunities, or there's not enough room to make it. On the music side, I would say that people in general, we have this vision of what making it is. And I think that it's important to recognize what type of artist you are, first and foremost, and then also to look at it differently now, because it's 2022, and we're in an era where you essentially build your own following, whatever it is. There are people that make a living, talking about lip gloss on the internet, and they've built a following of people who want to hear that. And so I think that, what we as artists can take heed from, on the theater side to music, is the whole notion of taking the ball in your own court. And, the other thing that I think is important is, we think of compromise. I think when we hear the word compromise, we think of it as an all or nothing situation. And I think it's really somewhere in the middle. When you're an artist, the truth is, you have a family, you have a house, you have, bills to pay, and, compromising doesn't have to look like losing your soul or anything. You may take a job that's, not the most fulfilling. I mean, I think we've all done that. But as far as, compromising the direction of your journey, I think we should be steadfast on that. I always say to Dominique, weigh it, when opportunities come your way, think about it. And I do this for myself. When opportunities come my way, sometimes you take a gig because it's a gig, as long as it doesn't derail you from your path. Sometimes that provides an opportunity for you to take what you did on that job and then pour it back into something you want to do. For instance, I took a gig once with a liquor brand, back when I was doing marketing, and I had strayed away from that work. I had done it for years, but I strayed away from it, and then I ended up taking the gig, and I used the proceeds from that to record my album. And the messaging in my music was night and day different than what I felt conflicted by in terms of pushing the spirits brand.
Okay. Do you feel, and this is for you, Mr. Keys, for all of you on the panel, do you feel that you have a responsibility? This question actually comes from Bjorn. Do you feel that you have a responsibility to mentor the next generation of artists?
It's a great question. So I personally, I can't speak for everybody. I personally, when I feel a charge and I come across someone in need of mentorship or wanting mentorship, I try to make myself available, because I understand what it was like to be in a fragile position and want mentorship. that having been said, I've also worked in a tough cutthroat environment where, there were no handouts in the music industry. In fact, I remember I went in for a raise one time. I wanted a raise, and my boss said to me, "Oh, you should have asked a year ago. I would have been gave it to you. I'm not giving you anything you don't ask for." And that stuck with me. And I said to myself right at that moment, I never want to operate like that. When you value the people around you, mentorship I feel like it is a responsibility for us to go back to the next generation of artists and give guidance. But at the same token, I think that it's a give and take, and the younger generation as well has to walk into the situation without expectation. I always say all of the people that came before me, they did their job. They provided me inspiration. Rakim provided inspiration for the generation that came after him. If I never worked with Rakim ever in life, he's already done his job.
Terrific. I have another question from Mary, unless somebody else wants to answer that question about.
Yeah, I think it's part of your responsibility, particularly in a community that has been fragmented and denied. It's part of your responsibility. The tricky part of it is, you can do so much. You can only do so much, and it's how do the people that you mentor, how do they get access to you? Because everybody wants access if they know that that person is giving it up, but you don't have the space or room to still have a life and have 7,000 people you're mentoring. So it like God orders your footsteps, and sometimes they come in together, and that relationship, it gets built, and you start mentoring. But to just, I can't go into the mailbox or the email or my Facebook down message thing, and there's 3 people today. There was 4 yesterday, and all I can do is be very kind to them and tell them what direction and what I think they could be doing. But for me to take them all in at once, I can't. But I have my brood, I have my team, and I have a big team. And when they get to the point, I push them out the nest. But I keep access to them. And when I push one out the nest and say, "You're a leader now, you go lead. And I'm here with you. If you stumble, I'm going to be there to make sure you get back on track." And then I grab another one and fill that slot. I'm always bringing 1 in, 2 in, 3 in. There are people probably on this right now that I have brought in, and I know for a fact, but the thing is, we must do that. That's how you empower. You continue to train the warriors to get them on the battlefield, because it is a battlefield. And August Wilson used to say the struggle continues. It will continue and continue and continue. But we have to get, like Sterling Brown says, strong men stronger. And that means women too. That don't mean just men. So we get stronger by the mentorship, by the generosity, by the grace. So we continue to bring in, and I will continue to do that until my last breath. But it's like, I hate that I have to disappoint certain amount of people, because I can't bring them all in. So I bring in people like a Brandon Durden and keep him close to me and close to me. Now Brandon is directing, and Brandon is mentoring in a big level, so he is mentoring people who are going to be mentors. You know what I mean? But we have to do that. And when people say they're not, role models and mentors, it comes with the territory. That's God gave you something, and what you give him back. That's the question.
Okay, terrific. Well answered. This question, I think, comes from Malik, colleague. Again, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing the name. Congratulations to all of the people involved in Skeleton Crew. Too Real saw it opening night. One of the lines that hit hard in the play is something that Reggie, the character Reggie, stated that I think about in my 9 to 5, fighting for your fellow employees. And in doing so, that fear that you would see something as a result of that.
Is it lose something? That you would lose
that experience,
something.
right, or that job, right? and being demoted. He's curious to know if you all deal with something, if you all have dealt with something similar, and actions have been taken in your own lives and in your own work. You'll speak to this better than I could, of course. And
Yeah, no.
you quote the line better, actually, because I'm not. It's sort of written in abbreviation. I just want.
Yeah, I think it's the question is I guess maybe have we experience in our own work that line that I guess Reggie's talking about in the play, that line you walk, what, looking out for yourself and looking out for other people around you, and what do you that there's a risk there, right? I guess, or an assumed risk that somebody else will be, that you will lose something, or that you'll put yourself on the line and sacrifice yourself, really. And I put that in the play because I don't have like one answer to it. No, it's all good, Malik. I don't have that. I don't think I have like a straight answer to it. I think I am interested in asking that question, if even for myself, because I too have, I am an activist. I'm an activist in the field in my field, in theater, and television, and film. I am constantly pushing for change, and uncomfortable change, and change that doesn't want to change, and lip service change is what I've received as a result, or people that say that they want to see the same change that I say I want to see, but they don't really want to do the uncomfortable thing that's necessary to make that change happen. And so it is a tough navigation. And I think that I don't think that there's a one size fits all answer to it. I just wish that we would take more care and concern for each other. I mean, actually, you know what? The answer to that question for me goes to a question you asked earlier, Carl. I don't think I answered, but you asked about, like, what do we want to see for Black theater? Mm-hmm. What I'd like to see for Black theater is something akin to what August Wilson named in The Ground on Which I Stand, his infamous essay. I want to share a little part of it that has always struck me. He says, the time has come for Black playwrights to confer with one another, to come together, to meet each other face to face, to address question of aesthetics and ways to defend ourselves from the naysayers who would trumpet our talents as insufficient to warrant the same manner of investigation and exploration as the majority. We need to develop guidelines for the protection of our cultural property, our contributions, and the influence they accrue. It is time we took responsibility for our talents in our own hands. And that paragraph goes on, but that has always struck with me, because I, as a worker in theater, as a playwright, I feel the most disconnected as a unit from other playwrights. I don't feel that way with like actors necessarily, or directors, because when we're collaborating, I'm collaborating with my director, I'm collaborating with my husband on music. I'm not collaborating with other playwrights. And so playwrights, Black playwrights move in white American theater, but also I just think in theater in general, we move very singularly. And that is counterintuitive to who I am and how I see myself in the world. So for me, that quote is August Wilson, The Ground on Which I Stand, by the way. I see somebody asking about it in the chat. But I see myself as a participant in this ecosystem with other writers. I would like to see for theater, for Black theater, I would like to see Black writers find some sense of common ground and find some sense of community and connection and engagement with each other. I think we all would have less of a sense of singularity and less of a sense of when we are in this game and when our work is under attack, because it will become under attack in the critical gaze. No matter how loved you are and how lauded you are, you still will become under attack. I always tell people, I've been loved and slain. I have been on both ends of that festival. So I don't get caught up in it, because I know the people that love you will hate you tomorrow, and the people that hate you tomorrow are gonna love you the next day because everybody else did. It's just it's not real love. It's just like followers on Instagram. They're not followers, are not supporters. Don't get them confused, And so But I want to see real supporters. I want to see us find a way to make space for each other and to defend each other's right to exist in this ecosystem, in our differences and our different voices. That's what I'd like to see. And to me, that is akin to standing up for your fellow workers. You know, I want to see, when Black playwrights are under attack, I want us to all feel under attack. You know, I do feel under attack when other Black playwrights are under attack. I feel like, whoa, in a pandemic, it is not okay to be slaying anybody's work, especially when we're the test dummies out here for everybody else. You're welcome that we put ourselves on the front line to figure out if COVID and theater can make sense together. You're welcome. And instead, if any of us is met with hostility or a lack of celebration, that is a problem for all of us, I feel. And so I do think there are ways in which you can stand up with and for each other and not have to put yourself on the line and not have to be the sacrificial lamb. And that comes with collectivity. That comes with building community and unity. And then you do not have to have martyrs.
Well said. Yes. I think we're done with taking questions, if I'm correct. And so I really want to thank you, Ms. Morrisseau, and I want to thank you, Mr. Keys, and I want to thank you, Mrs. Santiago-Hudson, for your time, for your eloquence, for your work, for your diligence, and for this beautiful thing that you've given us, which is called Skeleton Crew, but is a play that is on Broadway, and it's continuing, right? Is there a closing date that we know of, or is it going?
February 20th. We're there to February 20th, and we have to close then. So you still have time to get tickets. There's some shows that there's a little availability, and there's some shows there's very little availability. So I would encourage everyone who wants to see this to come see this dynamic play. I feel, and you know, in my 4 decades plus of doing this, it's one of the finest piece of writing that I have ever encountered. And I encourage you, and I welcome you to that theater, Samuel J. Friedman Theater there on Broadway. We're there to the 20th, and I'll be looking for you. You know, I'll pop in. I try to surprise the actors. You know, keep them on their P's and Q's. They're amazing. Felicia Rashad is stunning. Brandon Durden, Joshua Boone, and Shantae Adams are just. And Manhattan Theater Club has hosted us tremendously. And the protocols, the health protocols are all in place. Everybody vaccinated, everybody masked. And come on, see us.
You know, and actually, I'm going to throw in one more question, even though I was about to close. But this one, I cannot, I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge Patricia Cruz, who is the artistic director of Harlem Stage. And she asks, in response to Mrs. Santiago-Hudson's idea that those of us who are in the field can come together to promote the work of creative artists of color, not to get to Broadway but to get to the audience. What we do to advance the agenda, or what can we do to advance this agenda? I guess of audience development.
I think one of the first things that I don't know if it's possible, but it would be incredible if the theaters collectively came together and say, you know, let's start there. You do have an audience. I do have an audience. They have an audience. We're all of color. Let's make sure my house is full tonight and yours is full tomorrow. And it's simple, and but it is not proven true in our community at this point. I mean, Latin plays come up, Puerto Rican plays come up, all the Puerto Ricans go. Cuban plays come up, the Cubans go. You know, Mexican plays go, the Mexicans go. We're all Latin, we're all Black, we're all people of color. There's the Harlem Gatehouse and the National Black Theater and the Classical Theater Harlem, and on. These players, those players. How do we collectively have a council? And maybe you already do. And even the when the people come to the Broadway houses, I mean, it's like Kojo used to stand out and bring everybody from everywhere to where he wanted them to go. You know, so because he was this griot walking, you know, Kojo Ade, and he'd be walking there and just informing us that we are here, there, and there. And it was like sometimes you walk, when you come home and you got 6 different things, but it was all information. So I think it's a different way of getting that information now. But collectively, I think we all have to come together and say, look at what we just did. We just opened Broadway. And they talk about what money we didn't make. The money we did make for the theater, the dramas, was ours. Was our community's money. So how do we get that to the rest of the theaters? I'm not a genius about it, and I don't have all the answers. But I think it starts with collective communication and cooperation. You know, because everybody is like, they put us people of color in the position of, oh man, I ain't got nothing, I got to get mine. I got to get mine. That term did not exist when I came up. You couldn't say, I'm gonna get mine in my house. Because my mother told me when I did say it, she said, it's never been I. It's been we, it's been us. And we'll never survive. Dominique said something when somebody asked about, when you stand up for justice, when you stand up for integrity, do you have to jump on a grenade? And she said, not if we stand up collectively. Not if we stand up together. And we're gonna have to find a way to do that in the theaters. We got everything we need, you know, and it's easier said than done. But how do we start that dialogue, that community?
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for your time. Marceau, thank you so much for your time. Mr. Santiago-Hudson, thank you so much for your time. Mr. Keys, thank you so much for this play. Skeleton Crew, thank you. Manhattan Theater Club, thank you. Harlem Stage, Gatehouse, and for all the people who are involved in the production of this work and all the works to come, and what we hope to achieve as we move forward. I salute you, I really do.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.